I'm going to show you how to build an AI agent that will respond to form submissions, ask the right questions, and look to get them booked in for an appointment. So we'll start off with a couple of quick examples so you can see how it works. So let's open up the form, and this is just n8n's built-in form, but it can be connected to any form, whether you've got one on HubSpot or Framer, WordPress, whatever it is. It can be connected to whatever. So I'll just put some information in here really quick. Right, so I've just put my name, company, email, and for this one, I've put a landline in there. But I'll show you what happens if we put a mobile in. And for the inquiry, I've just put, hi, we're looking into doing some ads at our company, but unsure between Facebook or Google ads. So we'll submit that, just pin it so we can run it. And so it'll send it down this branch. Basically, I'll go into this when I'm showing each individual step, but this just determines whether it's a mobile or a landline. And if it's a mobile, it'll send a text. If it's a landline, it'll send an email. So let's have a look at the email it's sent. So there's a look at the email it sent us. So, hi Tom, thank you for reaching out. I'd be happy to help you determine which advertising platform, Facebook or Google ads, would be the best fit for your company's goals. Would you be available for a quick meeting this week to discuss your business and marketing objectives in more detail? That way I can provide tailored advice to help you make the best decision. Please let me know your availability and we'll schedule a time that works best for you. Now obviously we'll make sure it signs off in your voicing and your style, and you might want to edit how it words things and stuff like that, but I've just put a very basic prompt into the agent for now. But obviously the customer can reply to this email with their availability and the agent will reply back and get them booked in. But I'll show you how it works on the mobile, as I think it's a little bit easier to visualize. So we're back on here on the form submission, and I'll just fill this out, but I'll put a mobile in instead. So I've just pretty much put the exact same inquiry in there, the same details, but I've just put my personal mobile in there, so I'll have to blank it out, but we'll just submit that and then run the workflow. As you can see, this time it goes down the true branch and it'll send us a text. So I'll show you on my phone now what text it sent. There you go. Hi Tom, thanks for reaching out. I'd be happy to help you decide between Facebook and Google ads for your company. When would be a good time for you to have a quick chat to go over your options and goals? Let me know what works best for you. All right, so let's just respond to that. Hi, have you got any availability next week? Here we go. I'm free next week at the following times. Let's just say Wednesday at 2 is good. There we go, it's booked in, and if we look at our calendar, there it is, Wednesday at 2, it's booked in. So now I'll show you each individual workflow that makes this whole thing happen. So the first one is the form submission. So this start bit would be a trigger connected to your form, whether it's on whichever platform you host your website on, or if it's a HubSpot or whichever form, that'll connect right here. And then the second node processes the mobile number. It's on a platform called n8n. And so if you go on there, you put HTTP request in, and we're pretty much just trying to figure out whether it's a landline or a mobile number. So this is where you get your API key, and you get, I think it's 100 free requests in a month. And you put that in here. So you want to turn this on, send query parameters using the fields below. Put 3 of them there by adding add parameter, and then copy exactly how it is here, access_key. You want to copy and paste that. For the number, you just grab the number from the form submission. You might need to format it like this, so you'll just go back and forth with ChatGPT or Claude and make sure that it's processing the number correctly, because if it's not got the prefix at the start of the number, then it won't process it correctly. So depending on where you're from, you're going to have to probably mess around with that a little bit so that it outputs the mobile correctly and it can be processed. So below here, country code. If you're obviously in the UK, just put UK. If you're in the US, put the US. And then it comes over to an if node, which is just checking if it's a mobile, true, it'll go up here. I'll show you what that looks like. So if it's equal to mobile, true, it'll go up here. If it's false, it'll go down here. So as you can see, I've got really basic prompts in here. Really nothing special at all. Super basic. If you were setting this up for yourself, you'd want to put your tone in there, probably a couple of examples, stuff like that, just so it outputs more in tune with your brand's voicing and your personal voice and that sort of thing. But for the purposes of demonstration, I've just put a really simple prompt in here. That's why our responses might be a bit generic. But so it's pretty much the same for this one. And then to send an SMS, you're going to want to connect Twilio. And if you've not done this before, it's really easy. You just come over to Twilio, come over to your dashboard, and then grab your information here to connect to it. Paste this straight into here, and that's all done. And you're going to want to buy a mobile number. So if you just come over here to phone numbers, buy a number, and then buy a local mobile number to you. And then how you set that up to send an SMS, you literally just copy and paste the mobile number you've bought. You don't have to set up any webhooks for this bit. You just copy and paste it. Because it's connected to your account, it'll just do that automatically. And then the number you're sending it to, once you're testing and you've got some data through here, you'll just be able to grab it straight from the HTTP request, which is the num verify, so it'll be correctly formatted as well. And then the message output is just going to be the output from the AI agent. And then you're going to want to log all of this in a Google Sheet so that we have access to every single message back and forth later on when we're going to be summarizing it, because we want to summarize the whole conversation and send it to you as the business owner or your client, so they have all the context, so they're not going into the appointment blind. So how we do that, come over to the Google Sheets node, connect your Google Sheets account. If you've not done that before, I'll go over it really quickly. So you want to come over to console.cloud.google.com, and you're just going to type in Sheets. And you're going to need to enable that, and then come over here, come over to APIs and services. And then you should see it over here. Come over to credentials, and you might need to create a credential if you've not done it. So it's usually, well, it is an OAuth client in n8n. So once you press new credentials, you'll have to set this up. And all you need to do is input your URL over here. So if you come into n8n, press this little thing here. There's your link. So you just copy that URL. Come back in here, paste it in there, save it, and then create a secret. And then here's your client ID as well. So you grab your client ID, you create a secret, come back in here, put them in there, and then sign in. And in terms of the data you want to collect in the Google Sheet, I'll show you the actual sheet itself. So you want to copy exactly this. If you're going to be downloading these workflows, which they will be available in my free school community, if you just go in that in the description, join it, search up the title of this video, and then you can download each and every workflow in this video and just input your credentials. And so you won't have to worry about inputting all of this different stuff, but make sure you test it and make sure it works. So set your Google Sheet up exactly like this, just exactly the same. Session ID, direction, message underscore body, timestamp, and the Unix underscore TS, which is a measurement of time in seconds. I think it's how many seconds it's been since some date in the 1970s. It's just a really accurate way of measuring time, which we'll be using later on. So that's the form submission agent done, the one that's actually going to be sending the customer that first text. So the next one we'll be looking at is the brain and respond for both the email and the text. So when the customer responds to that first message, it will then be picked up by one of these two agents, depending on whether it's an email or a text message. So I'll show you both because they are a little bit different. So the text one is more straightforward. It's a webhook which is connected to the mobile number you just bought. So what you do is you copy this webhook URL here, come into Twilio, come into your active numbers, press your number there, and then come down to messaging configuration, set it up exactly like this, post request, webhook, and then copy and paste that URL in there. And obviously when it's a production system, you're going to want to change that to production URL. And now with this new text coming in, you want to log that message in the Google Sheet as well, so we have access to it later on. So obviously connect your account again, set everything up just like this. It should already be in there when you download the workflow. And then we've just got a set node, so we've got some clean data to work with later on. Just grabs the session ID from the Google Sheet, from number, message body, and the timestamp as well. And now we're going to want to get the rows from the Google Sheet, just because at this point there might have been a few back and forth messages. So this just ensures that the agent has all the context and it's not just replying to the most recent one. It does have simple memory, but this is mainly for that first message that gets sent over from the other agent, because this won't have the memory of that. So then it'll aggregate all of those messages into one input, so that it's not making 2 or 3 texts with all of the different inputs from the rows. That just looks like this. So message underscore body is the one that we want to aggregate into a single list. That comes into the booking agent. It then has access to these different tools. By this point, you've already set up your OAuth redirect URL in the Google console. So all you have to do now is you'll have to log in with your account again, but you'll just have to come over to here, type in your calendar, and then you'll have to enable that. So there'll be a little button there, just press enable. And then do that with each and every one of these. And when setting up these nodes, I usually just have the start and end time defined by the model, just so that it basically just goes off what the customer says in that text or email. The customer might say tomorrow, next week, or I'm busy for 2 weeks. And so the model will define basically where to look in the calendar. And obviously just choose the correct calendar you want to look into as well. Create an event, same thing. But this is where you might want to define it yourself, because if you do site visits, that might be an hour. If you do discovery calls, that might be half an hour. So you might want to define this as, half an hour or an hour or more or less. And then the update event node, all you need to do is just copy this exactly how it is. Basically, it will just reference the create event node, the one that was just used to create the event. So it uses that ID from that node, just so it moves the correct appointment. And that is basically all of the brain and respond text for the text, and the SMS we've already set up in the previous node, so it's the exact same thing. Just make sure you're referencing the correct phone number to send it to, which is available in the webhook. And then you want to log all the information on the Google Sheet on the way out as well. Now I'll show you the email, the brain and respond email, because it's a little bit different, at least with Gmail, which is the one I primarily use. So the Gmail trigger gets triggered every single email that comes into the inbox, which isn't ideal in this case because we don't want to respond to every email. So what we do is it triggers on the email. We get rows in our sheet that we've previously been logging all the replies in. We only want the session ID from those rows, and then we aggregate that into one object or array. Then we come into the if node and we want to stringify that array, so it comes up as just however many IDs just in a string. And then from our Gmail trigger, it will check if that ID matches any of the IDs in the spreadsheet. If it does, then it will carry on and respond. If it doesn't, then it will do nothing in this case. So we'll have a look at if it does. So it will then log the message in the spreadsheet, same as before. We'll just set a bit of data like the session ID, message body, and the timestamp. And then we'll get rows again, same as the text one where we want to have all the context. aggregate that into one input. So the booking agent will then have access to all the tools and then can respond to just that one individual, reply to the message and log it in the sheet, same as before. And now we move on to the summary agent. So this is why we've been logging every single back and forth message into a Google Sheet, is so that we can then summarize the entire conversation and then send that to the relevant people in the business, whether it's the business owner, the account executive, or anything like that. So in this workflow, it's triggered on row added, same as before, but we can import, we've got a weight down here. We could put one here, and this is the one where it depends on whether it's a text agent or an email agent. If it's the summary for the text agent, which it is here, it can probably wait a little less time because people generally text back a bit quicker than they do email. But if it's an email, we'll probably have it waiting a little bit longer. So what happens here is it triggers on a new row. We just want to set some data again, the session ID, the Unix, and the message body. And so what happens here is it's going to loop. So this comes in and there might have been 4 or 5 texts back and forth. So this gets triggered on row added, but it polls every minute. Basically, it refreshes every minute. So in that minute, there might have been 3 or 4 texts. So that'll come through as 4 separate things, but we want them processed individually. So we add the loop node here. So it will put each of those messages through this process one by one. And so I'm not going to go into the specific code in here. I basically just went back and forth with ChatGPT a little bit to make sure that it checks which message is coming in against the most recent message. I'll explain it a little bit better in a minute. So basically this process is one message at a time coming through. So I'll show you on the Google Sheet. It might make it a bit easier to reference or to visualize. So say it's processing this email here. Pretend these are all from the same customer. So it's processing this one. What this is doing is it will go through here, get the rest of the rows in the sheet and check if this is the most recent message. And if it's not the most recent message, it will then loop it around and then do it again. So it will then check. So if that's the most recent message, then it knows that there hasn't been any more communication between the agent and the customer. So most likely that conversation is finished. But if there is more information, then it will loop it again. And then until we're down here and it's the final one. That's why we logged the Unix over here, the specific time. So what will happen is this message will be processed. It'll be coming around this loop here. It'll get the rows, gets the most recent one, and then checks the one that's being processed against the most recent one. And if it's the same based on this digit here, which has now decided to put that there. So it will check that number based on the message that's being processed. And if it's the same, it knows it's the most recent text in the thread, which means that conversation is likely over, which means we can go down the true branch and we'll get all the rows in the sheet again. We'll get a transcript of the ones based on that session ID, whether it's on text or on email. And then we'll process a summary, or this agent will write a summary based on the transcript and then send it to the business owner, whether it's on Teams, Slack, email, text, wherever you want that coming out to, we can add it on there. And just to show you the summary agent for the email, as you can see, it's literally the exact same thing. So thank you for watching this video. I might have gone through that a bit quick, but what I would recommend is to download these workflows in the school community, plug them into your n8n, get your credentials in there, and then just start putting test workflows through, test data through. So you're going to want to put a test form submission through, put this as your phone number, so it just sends it to you. And then you're going to want to just test it out and then just make sure that it's all working correctly. And if it's not, just drop a message in the group and I'll help you out, or someone in the group will. So hopefully you found this one useful. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it, anything you'd improve or anything you'd adapt. Put in the comments any other AI agents you want me to build. And if you enjoyed it, press subscribe, and I'll be making a lot more to come as well. So I'll see you in the next one.